Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this second session of today's Ultra Week series. This session, we welcome Erin Faherty. She is a professor of English at Elizabethtown Community and Technical College, and she's going to be showing you one of her Ultra courses so you can get a deep look at some of the things that she does to design her course and how she runs her course. So Erin, I'm going to turn this over to you, and I will be watching the chat for you for any questions.
I appreciate it so much. Good morning, everyone.
Erin, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm having some difficulty hearing you. Your connection's a little weird. If someone else is finding that her connection's weird, can you type in the chat so that I know it's not just me? Okay. So yes, I don't know, Erin, if you need to use a headset mic or your internal mic.
Yeah, let me just switch over. Hold on.
Actually, that's better. Whatever you just did. Cannot hear you at all. I see your mouth moving.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
So no, it was AirPods. They're gone. So, okay, we're good. So let me just kind of warn you then, we have a new puppy in the house. So two things about that. One is that we're like newborn parents now, and we work on very little sleep. So if I say something crazy, I'm blaming the dog. And two, you might hear him now. I was hoping that would kind of take care of it, but hopefully we'll get through this without any barking incidents. Very good. Yeah, I think it's a great strategy to just go ahead and just straight up blame everything on the dog. When my son was at home, I blamed everything on him. So now I have a new thing to blame it on. So we're good. All right. So here we go. So what I've kind of decided to do with this session is to make this very interactive. I'm not going to be presenting anything. In other words, I was asked to cover a few specific things in my course. And so I'm going to show you what those are and then just make it about questions and answers and anything that you want to look at, etc. Does that sound okay to everybody? Okay, perfect. Let me do this. So we'll start with some things. Yeah, the more questions you ask, yeah, please ask questions. It goes so much better. I will say this, my Blackboard has been really slow this morning. Don't know what it is. I've shut everything else off in the house, except my husband also works from home, so he is on a conference call. But other than that, hopefully I'm praying to the technology gods that it goes smoothly. But we'll find a workaround. If I can't do it fast enough to show you some of the interactive activities, I've got some screenshots I can show you, but we'll get through it one way or the other. All right, so I kind of wanted to start the session today talking about engagement. And as you know, you guys are all instructors. You know how important engagement is in our courses, and especially if we're doing online courses or hybrid courses where we are actually using Blackboard a lot. It's important to have some of those engagement pieces in the class itself. So I'm going to kind of focus on how I've used Ultra to sort of increase my student engagement than perhaps what I was doing in Learn. I have been in Ultra, I don't know, is this third year? I've been since the beta, so I've been from the get-go. It's gone through a lot of renditions, a lot of improvements since the very first time I taught in it, and I'm sure it will continue to improve as we move forward. So what I'm going to do is kind of just jump into this engagement piece. I'm going to talk really about two things that I use, which are the discussion. I use group discussions and group assignments, and so I'm going to kind of focus on the group idea, if you will. But before we do that, let me go ahead and share with you, something that I use that is sort of important to how I've decided to design the engagement piece in my class. And so many years ago, I read a book by Rita Mae Conrad called Engaging the Student Learner. and it literally changed my life about how to get students really engaged in an online class. And basically the premise is that you kind of carry students through phases of engagement, if you will. And I don't know if you know this, but ECTC has moved to an 8-week semester. So we have a few classes that are still 16 weeks, but by and large, most of our courses are 8 weeks long. So I really kind of had to play with this engagement piece that I used to do in my 16-week class, and it's still a work in progress. So there is no perfecting it. You're just always changing it and hoping for good results. So, but in a nutshell, it basically carries students through 4 phases of engagement. We start off with the initial engagement phase, which is students are sort of newcomers, and we tend to be kind of like social engineers in the class, you know, like giving them this opportunity to meet each other. It's really where students get to know each other, just like the icebreakers you're used to doing in Learn or in your face-to-face classes, same kind of thing. So, you know, something I've included in this course. The second phase that I put my students through is moving them to the second phase, which is really where they become cooperators. And so typically what I will do is put students in pairs. They might be paired up for a discussion. They might be paired up for a group assignment. And it's really an assignment where they are just asked to kind of cooperate with each other, maybe find answers together, that kind of thing. And then I move students into phase 3, which tends to be weeks 3 or 4 in my class. And students become sort of collaborators. So they usually collaborate on a project. I usually put students in groups of 4 at this point, and a lot, you know, I'm an English teacher, so a lot of what we do will be like peer reviews and things like that. And so I kind of use that phase for that. The last phase, and sometimes for me is the most difficult in an online course, is for me, weeks 5 through 8, where I try to create some activities that are student-led, where the student is like the leader, the initiator, and that they are creating something, and I become sort of just an audience member at that point. And so kind of my role's kind of taken out of it, and the student sort of takes the lead. In that particular phase, you know, I've had students do things like case studies. They've created activities or assignments, and you know, that teach a concept, things like that. You know, the world, there's a lot of opportunities and options for that. But that in a nutshell is how I've kind of structured my course with the engagement opportunities in the class. So are there any questions about any of that? Okay. So let me just kind of go through then. I'm going to jump out of this slideshow and just sort of start sharing my screen with you so that we can kind of look at my course and see how some of these phases have been applied. So let me just jump in there. All right, can everybody see the course now? Okay, perfect. All right, so this course, thank you very much, is a course that opens in the second bi-term here. So it does have students in it, but it doesn't have any information, hopefully, that won't hurt them. There's no grades or anything like that. So it is a shell, but it does have students in it. So I'm not going to do too much that changes it. But this is basically, if you want to just know how my course looks, it's set up in modules that are weekly modules. I've just found that with a shorter term, students just respond better to my class when it's basically set up by the week. So I have a weekly module with a weekly due date, basically, for each and every week. So let's take a look at the engagement piece. I mentioned the icebreaker. Of course, we would do that in our orientation module. And so I have that set up in the very first module of the course. You can see it sort of down here. It is what I call a scavenger hunt. And so students are asked to not only say something about themselves, but then they have to go and find 2 other people that kind of have some common with their responses, and it's really created, just like most icebreakers, to for students to kind of create some connection. And I like to do that very first week in the course, just to kind of start that relationship building, hopefully, that happens that we sometimes take for granted in our face-to-face courses. Now, what I would like to say, because I use this sort of phased engagement, oftentimes I will take a look take a look at the scavenger hunt results and see how people connected with each other and make notes about that. And then sometimes I use those notes to create groups down the line. So if I have some students in class who really connected, in this first assignment, then typically I might put them in a group down the road together, just because they've kind of already started that connection process with each other. So I kind of use it twofold, I guess, if you will. All right, so that's sort of the first phase of engagement. So let me show you how then I would create a group with that discussion itself. So if you go to my module 2 here, I would be moving students from just sort of the whole entire class really into a pair assignment sometimes, or in this case, a discussion activity. And so we have the discussion activity down here. And I'm going to just walk you through the ease of kind of setting up groups with your discussion in Ultra. It's been a while since I've taught in Learn, but I feel like it's easier in Ultra to sort of create this environment to set up the groups themselves. All right, so it's moving a little faster than it was this morning, so I'm still crossing fingers here. And of course, I jinxed myself. All right, so we're in the discussion itself, and I've already created a group here, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the scenario. Hopefully it kicks in. There we go. All right, so once you're in a discussion that you've created, you can see this gear icon here. And I'm just going to click on that, and that's going to give you the menu for setting up all kinds of things within this discussion. What's really nifty, it's a very similar menu you'll find for a discussion, an assignment, anything that you really have to submit within Ultra. It kind of looks very similar to each other. So once you get the hang of one as a developer, it's really easy to kind of create some of those other items. All right, so here we have the group discussion tool down here, and I'm going to just kind of click on that, and it's going to show me the groups. So I've clicked on the 13 groups I've already set up. All right, so hopefully it'll bring us to our group page. And what's really good about the group page is that you can kind of do a lot of stuff with the groups right from this setup page. And I'm going to take you really just quickly through the options you have with your groups, or setting up your groups for a particular assignment. Sorry, guys, it is a little slow. All right, so here we have what the group page looks like in Ultra. And you have some options for setting up. You could do custom. So remember when I said that with my icebreaker, I sometimes go back and make notes about who to pair up in the future. So if I were going to do that for a group, then I would go to custom, and it gives you a list of the whole entire class, and you can literally just put people in groups together. Super, super easy. It's a little bit more of a manual process, obviously, than doing what I'm going to talk about today, randomly assign. So let me click on randomly assign. So sometimes I have really large sections, really like a triple section, and I break those students up into groups anyway, because it's 75 students in an English class just doesn't work. But I break them up into groups. So I use this tool a lot in my courses. So this is the randomly assigned tool. So you can assign students to groups randomly, And if you choose that, here's what's really easy. You can choose the number of groups that you'd like or how many people you want in a group. And because I use this phased process, I know that on this discussion, I want 2 or sometimes 2 to 3 in a group. It just depends on how big your group is. But I'm going to go 2 here. So 2 people per group, and that gives me 13 groups in this particular class. And you just click save. And now that group is going to be saved for this particular discussion. So that's kind of a basic process, not too much different, if I remember correctly, from how you might have done it in Learn. But what's really nifty about this is that the groups are the combination that you've set up here get saved. And so as you move through the semester, you are able to reuse that same group. So I'll show you what I mean, or you can add to it. And so that to me is the time saver, because then I can go to the next discussion, maybe a module later. And I know if I'm still in my pair phase, I just do the same pairs that I did previously. And it's super simple to set up that way. In addition, when I move to the section of my class where I want maybe 4 in a group, I'm able to bring up the pair groupings that I had and then just combine 2 pairs together to form a new group. So to me, the group interaction or the group tool is very, very useful in the course for how I like to develop my courses in Ultra itself. So I'm able to just quickly set those groups up and keep groups intact or add people to them as I need to. So it becomes very simple for me. Any questions so far about that setup?
No one's posted anything yet, Erin, but I'm continuing to watch.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let me get out of here.
Actually, while you're moving through to the next page, Brian Barger did ask, do you tend to use peer reviews?
Yes, absolutely. So it's an English class. So, one of the staples in the class is peer reviews. So I tend to do it as we are moving through. So once we get to phase 3, where it's sort of a collaboration, that's usually where I'll have the peer reviews. So I really kind of design my course, strangely enough, around the student engagement piece as much as I do around the content, if that makes sense. So I want to try to make sure that I'm to the point to do a peer review when it's the proper place for me for doing that sort of collaboration in a small group. And I'll tell you this, I've also just put classes in small groups from the first day, and they've stayed in the same small group throughout the entire semester. And so that works too. It doesn't always have to be sort of this phased engagement piece. I've done that as well, and that works really good if you do a lot of peer review. If you're doing it not just on essays, but all kinds of things, that works really well. So, all right, so that's kind of the discussion tool and setting up groups. I did want to show you what it looks like to create a group assignment, because once those groups are established, even though you've established them for a discussion, you still have access to those pairings for any sort of group activity that you do in the class. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to just take you very quickly to, if it'll close out for me, there we go. All right, to this particular module that has a pairing assignment in it. So it's a pair assignment. It's really where I've asked students to get together and kind of work on a little bit of analysis. They have to analyze a website. We do a lot of argumentation and things in this class. And so they're kind of looking at the argument that a website makes and really just answering questions about it, but they're doing it together. So it's not true collaboration. They're not kind of trying to create something, but they are kind of, saying, hey, what do you think? That kind of back and forth conversation, if you will. So let me see if it will open. and show you what that looks like. And I'm going to show you how it shows up. Your previous pairing shows up, so you can quickly make that the situation for this particular assignment. I'm sorry, it's giving me grief. My apologies. All right. So I'm going to go down here to analyze a website, pair assignment. Come on, don't quit on me now. Doesn't really want me to do it, sorry. All right. So once this sort of pops up, I'm just going to go straight to the grouping, and then I'm going to show you from student view, because what's really neat about Ultra, which I love, makes it very easy to do a group assignment, is that it creates an environment where students have immediate access to both Blackboard Collaborate and to course messaging on their group page. So they're able to very quickly and easily collaborate with each other from this group assignment page, if you will. So if we look here, again, you would go to the gear icon, and you can go to the 13 groups that we've already established earlier. I want to do the same pairing in this class that I did for that discussion. So when I'm on the pair or the grouping site or page, you can very quickly choose that pairing from your menu. And so you don't have to recreate the pairing that you did earlier. You can simply go from the top menu here, and then you can choose it. See, it says discussion, check with your peers. If you click there, that is going to put the same pairings together that were together for that particular activity. If you don't want them to be in the same group, then you can do, again, a randomly assigned setup there for this assignment, and then they would be put in a different and random group. So it works both ways, but it's real easy for the way that I've done it, which is to kind of keep some of these groups intact. Okay, so that's the group assignment, but I want to show it to you very quickly from a student perspective, so you can see what I'm talking about with the Collaborate tool and so forth. So let me get out of here and go to student preview. All right, let's go. All right, so we're getting there. Come on. Okay. So I'm going to go down to this module. So now I'm as if I'm a student. And let me just quickly go to the actual Analyze a Website assignment. Okay, so here's what I want to point out. So right here where it says group members, you'll see this camera icon, and you'll see these circles with the little connectors. That represents the conversation tool really in Blackboard Ultra. But students now can access Collaborate. So if they wanted to meet together live, they could over Blackboard Collaborate. It happens right here within the assignment. And then they also have a course messages, basically a discussion forum that is set up specific to this particular assignment that they can communicate with each other in that assignment. So love that it's all right there, that they're not having to navigate throughout the entire class to kind of do those group activities together. So love that really improvement with Ultra over Learn for how to do some of those group activities. Any questions about something like this, the group activity or group assignment in Ultra? Okay, so let me get out of student preview. All right, so that is the engagement piece for both the discussion tool, setting up groups there, and how it's sort of, it crosses those lines where you can use the same groups across assignments or discussions or activities in that manner. The other thing that I mentioned just a minute ago, the conversation tool, I want to just briefly talk about that. That is something that Ultra has that Learn did not have. And I use it for a lot of things in my class. So I am fully online. And so my Blackboard shell is the entire course. And my goal is really getting students talking and engaging with each other as much as possible, not always in terms of a graded assignment. So I've created some opportunities for them to do that. One, I have what I call the Comp Cafe, which is up here at the top of my class. And it is an open discussion forum where students can ask questions about assignments if they want to, about the course, and other students will answer them. So it's really not, I don't man it, I don't grade it. Sometimes I go in there and do a quick check just to make sure that, it's sort of as a moderator, if you will. But in general, students take that themselves and really sort of take charge of their own learning by answering questions for other students in there. I think it works great. So that's one way that they kind of use a discussion forum that's ungraded in the class. But the other way is really through this conversation tool. And so let me show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to go to one of my assignments. What's really neat is that this newest update with Ultra allows you to use this conversation tool with not just assignments or things that are being submitted in the class, but also with just documents. So I use it for a way, so if students have questions about a particular document that I've set up in the class, they can ask each other questions and answer those questions for each other within the same page, if you will, that the document and the information is on. I think it's a brilliant thing for students to do. They are more than likely to use it because it's right there, super easy access for them when they have that question. And the side benefit, of course, is that we as instructors are not having to answer all of those questions, that students are really kind of taking ownership of that information and providing answers to their fellow students in class, which is really good. Hopefully, if the answers are correct, of course. Okay, so let me kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to jump in. This is not a submission. This is actually just a document that is giving directions for a future assignment in the class. And if you notice up here at the very top menu, you'll see this little, looks like a little head with a conversation bubble. That is the conversation tool in the class. If you put a document in Ultra and you go to this gear icon here, what you would do is simply select allow class conversations here in this box here. So you don't have to allow it. It's not an automatic thing in Ultra. You can of course set it as you need to, but you can select that particular box, and then students then have access to that tool on this particular document. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So if students were to click this tool here, and as an instructor, I do have access to it as well. So I can jump in there and answer a question if I wanted to, or just kind of moderate, make sure things are appropriate, or whatever other reason you might want to just check on it occasionally. But here's what it looks like. It says conversations. but it's very similar looking to their discussion forum. And then they can just type a question or a response of some type. And then if someone does pose a question, then you can just hit reply and reply the answer or a comment or whatever you want to do. But what's really neat is that it's sort of contained in the same area that has the original information, in this case, the directions for an assignment. So I find that extremely useful in Ultra itself. So that's another one of the engagement pieces that I rely on a lot, is this sort of conversation tool in Ultra. Any questions about those two tools? Okay.
Hey, Erin, I do have a question. It wasn't in the chat, but it's just a question from me. Did you train students how to use that conversation piece and ask them to use that, or have they found that on their own?
So what I haven't done it's mentioned in our orientation module, but then what I will do is on the, whatever I am opening the conversation tool on, whether it's a document or an assignment, I will have in the, usually the top of the page, I will say something like, the conversation tool on the right top of your screen is enabled for you to ask questions of your students. So I do give them sort of that heads up that it's up there for the assignment.
Awesome, thank you. And then Stephanie Edelman in the chat asked, do you have the ability to check conversations globally?
No. If it's possible, I don't know of it. So I'm basically are checking conversations by going into the individual assignment or document that you have. So that can be a little cumbersome. So I don't necessarily make it something I do all the time. So hopefully that will get easier.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I thought I saw a couple more maybe.
They've come in with a few comments. Brian Barger said that he's had students find it, finding conversations and use it on their own when he's implemented it in some of his courses. And then Valerie Wheat said that she took a screenshot and annotated it with arrows to put it in her instruction page.
Yes, that's perfect. I have a screenshot in the orientation module, but that's actually a great suggestion to actually add it to the each page that you've enabled it on, because students forget what they've read from the first week. Of course, they have lots of courses, so great suggestion. Yeah, but they do find it on their own too, especially the curious students who are clicking on everything and clicking on items. So they will find it. I do find that my students do use the open chat at the top of the page in the class. So that kind of has a similar role as the conversation tool. It's just more generalized into the class, but I do find that students use that a lot. All right, so those are the kind of engagement pieces or the tools that I use in the class themselves. But I do want to mention one of the things I was asked to cover is sort of the idea of some synchronous opportunities within Ultra, and specifically with guest speakers. So one of the things that I also do with my courses, especially the course I have pulled up, which is a 102 course, is I do guest speakers. So because it's a research course, I actually have my librarian do live sessions for my course itself. And it's just like you could do with Learn. It uses Blackboard Collaborate in the course, and gives that opportunity for some Q&A from the librarian. It's also geared specifically to my class, so she will develop a presentation that is specific to the assignment in the class that I'm in. The other idea that we've done just working with my librarian is she's also been embedded in my course, which has been, I love it. So for my 102, she will be added as a TA in my course. And so students, when they go to email from the email page, they can quickly click on her email information and send her a quick message. And so I have really loved both of those options, sort of creating a guest speaker aspect as well as having her embedded in the course to answer those student questions that are specific things that I may not know, but that she would know much better. But I will say this, because I'm fully online, I don't require students to attend fully synchronous sessions. Due to where my college is, I get a lot of Army students, and so it's very difficult sometimes for them to attend scheduled synchronous sessions. And so I usually make those sessions optional in my classes, and then I do record them, of course, so that students have access to those recordings when they can access them. Does anybody else use guest speakers in their class, especially their online courses? I love to get some ideas about other things to use them. You know, I'm always trying to think what would be valuable for students to learn about that's not just me telling them about it. So not yet. Yeah, but it could be really interesting if you know, I've had these ideas of doing things like weekly or bi-weekly, you know, in the course. But once we moved to our 8-week format, all those kind of great ideas kind of went out the window. And I'm like, just let me get through this and get all my classes redesigned for our start with the bi-term semester this year. So hopefully, if you think of some, send them out, send them to us, because I'd like to do some kind of original and unique things with guest speakers in the course, because I think it makes it really engaging for students for sure. The other thing that I was asked to kind of cover is third-party integration. Now, do any of you guys use a third party for some of your content in your courses? Pearson, okay. Oh, and Brian, I just saw your message. You don't use guest speakers, but you do include videos from people. I love that. That's great too. Oh, McGraw. Okay, so some of you do. I use MindTap, Cengage MindTap. I've used Pearson in the past. I have not used Pearson with Ultra. I've only used MindTap, but I can just show you quickly how, and I'm sure it's very similar process for Pearson. And it's really very similar to what it was like in Learn, is that, you know, students, it's all integrated. Students don't have a separate sign-on for, at least for Cengage MindTap. Once you've linked your course up, your Ultra course, to that particular environment, you know, that particular third party, then it's just really usually smooth sailing for that. Now, one thing that Cengage does, and I don't remember if Pearson does this or not, but it allows for what they call deep links, which means you can link a specific assignment in your course. So you're not just linking generically sort of over to the course itself. You can actually link in your Blackboard Ultra, you can link to a specific assignment. So I love that function, because, you know, students don't have to then go and find it through all of your stuff in, you know, the third party course. They can just go directly to the assignment. So let me kind of show you what that looks like. So here I've got it sort of pulled up, MindTap work and textbook. And then we can see these two. This is what it looks like for the student. It would just have like this particular chapter that's in the book. So I'm going to click there, and then I know that I'll have to share that page. So let me just do that really quick. All right, so once you click that that link, it brings them directly, at least for MindTap, directly to this unit in the third party where they can do their reading, do their 2 activities there. So it's really seamless, at least from my perspective, and the students rarely have complaints about it. So it's actually pretty good that way too. So that's one way that you can set it up, at least if you're using Cengage for those deep links. So any questions? I feel like I've just kind of rushed through a lot of information and throwing it at you. Is there anything else that you have questions about or that you might want to see in the course itself?
Does anyone have any additional questions for Erin? Erin, I know you showed us a few things in Student View, but can you just go into Student View and kind of show us the start of the class? Just kind of show us kind of an overview of just how you've put your course together, what it visually looks like to the students.
Absolutely. So let me do that super quick here. Huh. I like that, super quick. Probably not super quick. Yeah, so what I love about Ultra too is how it looks for students. And I will tell you, your students will love it. There's sometimes things from the development side of things that are easier, but are also more difficult. But in general, students absolutely love the streamlined to Ultra. If you've been to any classes about Ultra, you know that it does not have as much scaffolding as Learn does. So it is a much more streamlined process for students. They don't have to click on a bunch of different things to find the information in the class. So here I am in Student View here. So let me just show you how it works. I'm going to go in the orientation module. So students would start, of course, by clicking that, and then they're going to go to the first page of that orientation module. And this is what I love about it. So once they're in the module itself, visually, I always like to say it's so visually pleasing to me, the way that it's set up. So they can scroll down on that very first page, see all the things, that they need to do or read about. And then what I love is the movement of information really for students. So they would go from here to this little arrow here in the module and click on it, and it takes them to the next page. They never have to kind of get out of the module. They just kind of click over, and then they can go backwards as well. And so you can just students can very quickly go through the information in the class that way in the module. So I don't know if you guys have experienced this. One of the beefs that I have about students and Blackboard is that many students want to go to the Blackboard Calendar and click on assignments and do them without actually going through your module. So I don't know if you have problems with that. I've had, honestly, since the pandemic, I have had more and more and more students use that function. And you know that that's what they're doing because they have no clue when they submit their assignment. You're like thinking, where do they even get this information from? Well, it's because they didn't actually read the module. So there are things that you can do. So one of the things that you can set up for your, that's right, they do not read the material. Yes, absolutely. Is you can set for release conditions, you can set progress. So students can't actually get to the activity or the assignment until they do the things that come before it. So that has both positives and negatives from my perspectives. The positive, of course, is it keeps them on track. But the negative is my really good students, and I'm afraid I was like this as well, want to read ahead. They want to see what's coming down the pike so that they can, so it kind of gears or structures what they're doing currently. And so that progress app, if they're not finishing some early things, they can't even look at what's coming down, next or beyond that. And so I get that frustration as well. Yeah, Yeah, it does. And so I've quit using it, to be honest. I thought, oh, it's great. It'll be perfect. It's not so great. For that reason, I just find that it does create frustration for students, especially students who want to look ahead. And it's usually my best students who have that frustration. Yes, exactly. Um, the other thing that I've used that kind of helps with this calendar situation is that instead of putting my assignment directions on the assignment submission, I don't. Where they submit the assignment, the link to submit their assignment, it just says, submit this assignment. If you need to understand the assignment, go back to, and it gives the page where the directions were on. So they're forced to kind of go back and read at least the stuff that gets them to that assignment, if they take the time to do that. Some of them just submit anyway, but those are few and far between for sure. I have found that separating those two things out, like not putting the instructions on the submission page, sort of keeps students from just clicking on that calendar item and completing the assignment without kind of doing the stuff leading up to it. So anyway, yeah, it is. It's just phrasing, unfortunately. I wish there was a link to do it. That would be great. That would be fantastic. So, so yeah, that's kind of how the modules are set up. But it makes it really easy to set your modules up like you would normally, where you're kind of going through the phases of learning, and you're kind of increasing. I do a lot of, or try to do some learning activities, or active learning activities in the class, and so the ultra module setup really makes that a little bit simpler, if you will.
Hey, Erin.
Any questions about that?
Yeah, Ed Morris, well, not a question about that, but Ed Morris asked earlier that if you allow multiple attempts on an activity, you cannot use groups. Do you have a workaround for that?
I do not. And I'm not sure why that's the case. The other downside to group activity or a group assignment is that only one person can submit. So sometimes you'll have an accident, right? Like they work on a draft inside the group page, and then one of the students gets their wires crossed and they submit what they're contributing. They think they're just contributing to the overall document, but they actually submit it as the final document, and it's not complete, or those kinds of things. So sometimes you'll find that's an issue too, is that only one person can submit, and then if the next person comes along, they can, it's just it can be a little awkward. But I'm not really sure why we can't have multiple group attempts, because that would alleviate a lot of that issue, because then the group leader could just submit over on top of the previous submission, no problem. So it does create a little bit of a work for the instructor if there's an issue like that, where you have to kind of delete the attempt and then they can go back in and do it again. So.
Does anyone else have any questions? We have 2 minutes remaining in this section. Okay, I don't see any, Erin. I just want to say thank you so much for helping lead this session. I really appreciate you. Your course is beautiful and so well thought out and well put together, and I think it's wonderful for folks to get a chance to look at it. Thank you for sharing with us.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's fun to talk about it, and really I can't wait to find out some new ideas to try. So send them out, guys.
Thank you, Erin. Our next session will start in 10 minutes. We've got Amy Argo, and she will be talking about how to import your old tests from Blackboard Learn Original into your new Ultra courses. See you in 10 minutes.